be super obsessed with understanding the person and problem you're solving. Please, Apple, make Siri better. There are so many AI startups who unfortunately create products that nobody needs. A lot of product managers are project managers. And if you don't remember it, then it doesn't matter.
Hi, Edgar.
Let's go.
How are you?
Oh, good. Evening for me, morning for you. Perfect setup.
Okay, thanks for coming and thanks for finding time to talk with me. I'm actually really excited to learn about what you're working on, and hopefully we're going to talk a lot about product development, but we'll see where it's going to take us. I don't want to do any kind of huge introductions, so I'll just let you tell us, who is Edgar? Tell us about yourself a bit, like whatever you find important, and so people who don't know you yet maybe learn about you a bit.
Sure. I'll make it probably super short. I'm entrepreneur, product builder, software engineer who understood that just building software, you can build anything that you can imagine, but you need also to convince other people that what you're building actually matters. So I transitioned from software engineering to product management after probably 10 years of actually building, really writing code. And now I'm still writing code, but it's probably more or less 5 to 10% of my daily activities. And at the moment I work for Snyk. I'm leading AI and machine learning group. We have pretty impressive setup of people here in Zurich office. And then in parallel, I'm working on Pandalign, which is hopefully the game changer for a lot of product teams to run product discovery.
Cool. And you said you're in Switzerland right now. So how did you end up there?
That's in a short story. When I finished school, I think 10 or 12 people out of 26 people went to London because that was fancy back in the days. And as somebody I looked yesterday from AI sessions, they said, following the herd is not always the smartest thing to do. I think it was Tim Cook who said that, or somebody else. But this was almost like the same feeling I had. So I moved actually to Constance, which is on the border with Switzerland. Then I led there. I founded my first startup. Then I joined another startup in Düsseldorf. I traveled a lot in Asia because we have manufacturing there. So I had my great times with actually developing hardware apart from software. And then when my daughter was born, we were planning to move back to Constance, but then it somehow didn't stop and we just landed in Switzerland. So just following the opportunities.
Yeah, interesting. And how is Switzerland for startups today? Like, is there an active startup scene, or what would you say about it?
Switzerland is actually on the innovation index. It takes usually number one. A lot of people have different thoughts about it. My particular question was why number of patents takes any sense in this ranking. But this is a very kind of philosophical question there. But I think in Switzerland, you have a lot of very scientific innovation that usually you don't see because they're not on the surface. I think Switzerland is not popular for building any new B2B SaaS or new apps, rather creating some laser technology for aerospace industry, or creating some machinery, which is, actually heating up your house, but you just don't know it. So there's a lot of kind of hidden innovation happening in Switzerland, which is, if you're industry experts in very kind of deep technological fields, or for example, biochemistry, these are the two main, let's say, kind of areas where, ETH, which is University in Zurich, and then you have EPFL. This is the second university in Lausanne and Geneva. They have multiple parts there. So they're focusing more on biology, chemistry, all the pharma, Philip Morris, and a bunch of other companies who actually are very relevant to that are located there. And in Zurich, you have all of the big machineries, literally like heavy engineering. And of course, data and AI, which is very, very strong here. That's where we have also our office.
That's cool. So it's like, do you know like any big names in addition to Snyk, which we probably didn't know that those are Switzerland startups?
Oh, probably you didn't. So probably that Google has a major office here because it historically was the first like talent acquisition channel from ETH University to Google. That's why the office here was building super fast. But then you would actually not know that, for example, Facebook has a huge office here all around AR, VR, mixed reality. The same applies for Apple. Apple has quite big office here with a lot of very talented people around AI. A lot of engineers from RIP Apple car, which will not come anymore, but a lot of engineers who were working actually on the tech, which should have gone into the Apple car, were also located here in Zurich. So we have a lot of like deep tech. Let's put it that way.
Nice. That's really cool. But let's talk about you a bit more. So I know you as an entrepreneur, but can you tell, because I don't know the answer for that question for sure. Like, how did you make your first money? What was this first job that you had?
Oh, it was super simple. My dad was working
legal?
for an... no, not Silicon Road. It was more legal. My dad worked at governmental engineering office where they were creating various plans for electricity and buildings, etc. And we had computers super early at home. And then what I didn't like to learn things that don't bother me or like that don't matter in my point of view. Obviously, you can question if a child knows what matters at all. Like mathematics matters everywhere, but you don't see the application immediately because you're taught with very different angle. But in essence, what I was doing, I was actually printing out cheat sheets. And the first cheat sheet I built for myself, then somebody saw it in my class and asked me like, hey, where do you get this? I said like, yeah, when I was learning, I was just typing down like some kind of notes. And then I was just printing these notes with font 6, cutting it out and putting in different places on my body to write down on the exams. And then my friend of mine asked me if I can print her for him. And first time I did it for free. And then next time I saw more people asking me, I was like, oh shit, this is like a great business opportunity. So I started selling them. And one cheat sheet was back in the days around like 5 crowns, Estonian crowns, which is probably today, I don't know, maybe like a couple of euros. But like if you have 20 people in the class who want it, so it's like 40 euros from one exam. Obviously, your customer lifetime value is very limited because like after 12 class, it's over. It would be very weird if I would be outside of school, but still doing cheat sheets for pupils and classes at some school. So that was the first, my personal income. I don't even know if my parents know that, but they don't listen to any podcast. So I hope it will not reach them.
I'll make a cut for them especially. Okay, so that's like that's a fun one. And what kind of products or startups did you do afterwards?
Yeah, so after school, I moved quite immediately to Constance. I started the usual thing that probably a lot of IT people did back in the days is I started an agency for web app mobile development. I have teams in Ukraine, Belarus, and Tallinn. And I was literally like acquiring Swiss customers, doing projects. In the beginning, I was coding myself, but at one point I figured out, I can actually do more like in sales sort of job, and I can actually outsource that and then enjoy my time. And it was super interesting because in the beginning I was literally working and studying all at the same time. I didn't have any free time. I didn't go, on the parties in the dormitory and all of that stuff. Every time you would come to my room, I was like, hey, I'm building some website or some online shop or some app. But with the time, I just figured out that if I outsource that, I'm quite open to, to pay somebody and share whatever I need to pay them and have my own margin and live from this margin. And probably the first, fundamental startup that I did was actually same day grocery delivery. It was 2014, 15. We were unfortunately 6 years too early. If we would started before COVID, I would probably now not need to work anymore for end of my life and my child's life. But we fundraised 1.5 million. We rented out a warehouse of 1,500 square meters. We built huge racks for, kind of beverages and fruits and vegetables and dry assortment and cooled and frozen. So you have so much bureaucracy in Germany of how you can at all like do such things. It's not that you go in and you just like, yeah, we have a warehouse and I will deliver that. You have various like health, policies that, for example, you have bio tomatoes shouldn't lie on the same shelf with usual tomatoes. In between should be something so that somebody who is picking them for customers would not switch. Or, for example, like you need actually to prove that the frozen goods are not reaching very specific temperatures when they're delivered. So you need to find out, like, are you using dry ice? Are you using specific boxes? So everything was super complicated in terms of operations. And then the fun part started when we wanted to evaluate which ERP and CRM system to use. We couldn't find anything that could manage such complexity. Because like the simple thing is like you have a warehouse, you have, I don't know, Corona beer that you buy in huge like bricks, where you have 4 6-packs and then every 6-pack has 6 bottles. Now somebody in your warehouse will go and break a 6-pack, take 1 bottle. Now when another order comes in, the same person will just go and break a second 6-pack. So now you have 2 6-packs, but like 20 bottles. So like how does that end up in the system, which is very complicated? Or for example, online shop, like if you buy, let's take you buy shoes. Actually, you're looking for 1 pair of shoes that match your some sort of criteria. So your experience is all about finding this one product. So a lot of focus is on presenting the product and showing you a lot of information and pictures, etc. But when we buy groceries, usually we buy around 50 to 100 products with 1 cart. This is absolutely different approach to commerce, and you need to design your online shop completely differently. So no of the online shops worked out for us. And what we ended up doing is that I hired 5 engineers. We had 1 designer as a co-founder, and we built our own ERP system with like end-to-end supply chain, with like managing warehouse, managing delivery, purchasing, all the kind of stuff that is like brings a lot of complexity. And on the other side, we also developed complete new experience on the online shop. We literally, when you will look at our code, we have 3 pages. We have first page is the shop, which is just single page application, 1 page, where you have all the shelves with infinite scroll. So you could actually go from, I don't know, bread to tomatoes to meat to milk products, then go back up, open shelves, literally like the experience that you have like in the store. And then the second page would be your checkout, like to add your personal details. And the third page is actually select your delivery slot. And that's it. So like we have shop with 3 pages, but obviously there's a lot much code behind that because there's a lot of complexity, but a lot of benefits that we brought to a lot of like fans of Fudu in the early days was we had a lot of customers who were families. Families had kids, and a lot of families have different preferences. For example, some families, they don't eat nuts because their child has an allergy, for example. Then they literally want to eliminate anything that has nuts. Currently in the shops, it's super hard to do because you need to go take every product and read, does it have any nuts? Or for example, if you have lactose intolerance or any other allergies or intolerances, you need all the time be very cautious of what you're buying. And for us, it was literally like, hey, we have all the data. So let's just create a filter. And then when you select it, all your shop will filter out these products like live, like in a second. And a lot of our families, what they did, they created accounts, they added their filters. And it was super convenient for them because they don't need to check anything. They just go down and they know that all the products we show them match their, health requirements, or for example, what they're allowed to eat or what they're not allowed to eat. It was very fascinating, but it was also, I think, maybe 2 weeks. I was actually almost living inside of the warehouse because it was summer, and I was like, like my house was probably 20 minutes away from it, but I was like, I don't have time to go home. Let's just code night long. And people were like, yeah, sure. And then we just stayed, all our team. I know now it sounds very, flashy. Like when Elon Musk said he slept in his office, I think our warehouse looked very much worse than Tesla's office. Not that fancy, no sofa, nothing. But yeah, I can admit this is the same times that you do as an entrepreneur when you're like, yeah, we put ourselves a deadline. This was probably the best thing that we did. We literally said we are launching on, I remember, 1st August or 1st September. And that's it. We don't move the date. If we need to work more, we work more. But this is like, we moved only, I think, once. And then we said like, that's it. We can't move more. just because you have money and you have, all the dates for procurement, for bringing in the food. And as soon as food is in the warehouse, you're literally working against time because the food has best before date. So if you don't open on time, some of the products you need to throw away. So you will have immediate money that you just threaded. So yeah, that was a funny journey there.
That's nice. So did you do any other startups after that, or what was the story after?
Then the bad part of that was that when we actually went for the second fundraising after a year, in Germany, there was one big network of groceries who went bankruptcy. So we were in the completely wrong timing for actually fundraising again for what we were building. And then we closed the company. And on that side, I met two founders from Düsseldorf who were doing Philips Hue alternative, but they were very great at sales and business development, but they had nobody who understands technology, neither design. What they did were they were buying Chinese products, packaging them nicely and selling in Europe. But then at one point, their return rate spiked so high that they needed to do something with products to make them actually work and work nicely. And my co-founder was actually an investor in the startup, so he introduced me. We moved with my pregnant wife, which was also not fun, but she agreed to move to Düsseldorf. This was first job for me where I literally needed to embrace what is it to be CPO and not just creating technical architecture and what technology do we use and how do we code it, but actually understanding, okay, how does the product work? How do we make huge, investment into cloud infrastructure? For example, we worked with AWS IoT in Seattle, very close. We had our R&D office in Minsk. We had a supplier for Gateway in Denmark. We had, I remember, around 7 factories in China who actually supplied different parts. And then in Hong Kong, we were actually building them together. And then you need to, if you're just building B2B SaaS, and then I explained some people hey, I had 7 manufacturers. They all produced this tiny thing. Then all of these things are moving to one specific location. Then the company assembles it. You have your firmware for every product. You need to verify that it works. It connects to AWS. It has all the certificates required. It's the right version. This is hard stuff. Because software, you can change it anytime. You just upload new files to your cloud and voila. But then when you deploy hardware, it's as soon as it's out and somebody as I have here on the top, as soon as you have somewhere installed, you're not able to go there and put your USB stick and reboot it or do something. You need to be super sure that whatever firmware you put in the device, that it will serve you for the next, probably 10 years, right? Because you will give some kind of guarantee of 2 to 3 years. After 5 years, they will probably still not change it. But then also understanding okay, how do you monetize all of that? Because if you will now deploy, for example, 10 to 20 devices, we had light only in the beginning, but then we added moving sensors, motion sensors, smoke sensors, liquid sensors, for example, that you can put in your ceiling. If water leakage is there, it will actually alarm you. And we expanded the portfolio quite a lot. And then you also have the workflow, kind of that needs to work. For example, turning on the lights when you come home and various other things. And I believe we very underestimate how much complexity it is actually to produce sustainable hardware with software that's connected to the cloud and where you don't pay any subscription. Because imagine how high the price for the hardware needs to be to provide you free cloud kind of connectivity, free functionality. And then also we're still evolving the software, right? We're adding new features. Now, how much do you need to charge your current users? Do you increase the price? Do you actually decrease the price of the hardware and you add the subscription to the cloud? Or maybe you add the subscription to an app. So it's very complex question. There's probably no holistic true answer. And, when you currently buy, for example, Google Nest Wi-Fi routers, you just buy them, you install them, but that's it, right? You don't pay anything. You pay for the device, but probably device costs you $20, but you paid $300. So this margin already includes that, yes, we will develop software, we will develop firmware. Although this is not really a great example with Nest. I don't know. I have them. They don't really work well, but there are a bunch of other products where you pay once and then actually your data and your usage analytics are actually the price you pay in a way. And in other ones where you pay subscription, that it's definitely just a different pricing model. For example, like I wanted to buy Aura Ring recently. And then I went to their website and my expectations were like, okay, or this ring will cost me like $50 and I will have a subscription, or it will cost me like $500, but then like all the features will be for free. And then I go to Aura website and it's like, it costs $500 and then you pay $20 or something per month. And I was like, what is this? Like, no, it's too expensive. Like, no, it's like, I will not buy it. But there's still market. There's still people who buy it and they overpay like for the hardware, but then they also pay for subscription. So yeah, maybe I'm just like not the, the usual cohort of their customers. But these were all the challenges that I needed kind of to overcome and learn. And wow, what is this? How do you simulate this potential outcomes?
While you didn't go way too far from Aura, like for me, Aura Ring experience, like I bought the ring, I subscribed, and then next month I lost the ring. And I was like, okay. I was like, that was probably the worst. And so like probably next time, I'm not buying the second one. It's just like, I'm going to lose it again.
Yeah. But a great example for me is still like, one of the greatest inventions or the products that Tim Cook brought after, Steve Jobs died was actually Apple Watch. And Apple Watch for me today is such a unreplaceable thing. Like every time I'm working or I go to sport or everywhere, when I forget my Apple Watch or AirPods, I freak out immediately. I'm like absolutely lost. Like, oh, how do I need to do it? Do I hold the phone all the time at my ear? Oh no, the phone is so heavy. Like, how did the people did that so, there's like you get attached to some products so hard, but then in Apple Watch, I don't pay monthly. And come on, price for Apple Watch is not that high. I mean, the new one for the heavy sport athletes, etc. This is something, I question that. But Apple Watch became very kind of, parts of the life, even probably more attached as phone nowadays.
To me, I think AirPods is like more valuable than the watch, because like with AirPods, like I really like I don't understand how to how to do the phone stuff like without the AirPods anymore. But I'm doing a lot of calls and a lot of conversations. That's why.
Oh, just talk to it. I mean, I hope Siri will become better. Please, Apple, if you listen to that, make Siri better and make it with LLMs and everything. It's possible. Don't tell it it's impossible. But I agree that actually AirPods, business-wise, have much more value. But also a lot of people thought like, hey, what is this? Is it just like earplugs from Apple just without the cord, but they cost like $300? What is this? It's not innovation. But then 2 months, 3 months later, everybody walks with them in their ears and all the haters are gone. And then you see like the annual review of Apple and it's like number one product generating revenue. And you're like, that's the reality. It's a very small, simple product, great quality, price kind of leverage, and people buy it. It's incredible.
Yeah, with AirPods, I can give you an example. Like I have father-in-law visiting us now. And when he comes out of the room and like I sometimes see him wearing the AirPods, like I think like, okay, that technology is is really far. Like everybody's really using that.
Elderly
For kids,
proof.
That's a long time ago, but
yeah.
now also grandparents are using that. So okay, but let's talk about building products, and because I think like that's where you have a lot of experience and knowledge. Probably like bug you with a couple of questions there, but let's start with a simple one. Like, how do you build a good product?
I think I did it in the wrong way a lot of times. I have a lot of products that I built and then I understood it was not the product. It was not even me. It was the approach, how I approached building products. And actually with Pandalign is my sort of investment back that if you would ask me like, hey, Edgar, 10 years ago, what would be the advice to tell younger yourself? I would literally say like, be super obsessed with understanding the person and problem you're solving. It doesn't matter which technology you use. It doesn't matter if you use AI. It doesn't matter if you're using cloud, if you use an mobile app or desktop app. All of that doesn't matter. All of that is buildable, developable. You can do so many things nowadays with the right tools. But if you do all of that for solving the problem for somebody who maybe doesn't even exist, or they don't know that they exist, or you're solving the problem that doesn't exist, then all of the fancy tech you built is absolutely relevant. And that's why the sort of where do I start today is actually simply with defining. The first thing for me is always like, I have a hypothesis that specific segment or cohort or whatever you call it of people experience specific challenges when they want to achieve specific goals. This is for me the fundamental thing that I try to crystallize. Then you will ask, yeah, but how do you come up with this cohort? And over the time, it was super hard to come to this. But over the time, I came to a conclusion that the easiest thing is like, if I can find these people in LinkedIn by using LinkedIn filters, this is my cohort. So my cohort is equivalent LinkedIn filters, plus minus, 1-to-1. And if I can find this, and I will go now and connect to 100 people, and I will send them a meaningful short message with describing the problem, asking if they have it, and telling them that I just want to discuss this problem because I'm exploring this space. If you get, let's say, 20 to 50% answer quote, there's something. But if you connect to 100 people, you write all of them, and 1% answers you, or even less, it means or you're trying to sell something already, so your outreach is bad, or there's no problem. I can't tell you, is it first or second? But in essence, this is kind of my correlation. Like if I know the people or my cohort or my persona, I know what's their problem, then I go in and I literally use LinkedIn to validate this. And this is the simplest thing to do. Like if the people, and by the way, don't put in your title or anywhere, anything related to sales, customer development or business development, because the next message I already know that will come is, hey, I'm XYZ. We're so amazing. We do the la 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 la. We did for these companies. Then you read the companies, you Google them. They're all YC batch combinator peers of the startup that is trying to sell you something. And you're like, okay, bye. Thank you. Don't do this mistake. Like literally be obsessed about the people, be obsessed about the problem. And only if you get these two ticks off, then you can go further and think like, okay, we could solve this in 2 or 3 different potential ways. And then don't waste people who you talk to. I believe 2 great things that I learned is, number 1, it's all about relationships, that I believe where me and you are very kind of aligned also on what you do with Parma. But then the second thing is, always ask people if they know other people like them, because we always know. I know 20, 40, 50 product managers. I can literally go to my LinkedIn and find them and do an intro. For me, it costs nothing. And in particular, you should be very lucrative to the people who are willing to spend more time with you to discuss the problem. This is like somebody who you want to be as close as possible. If somebody will tell you that he is ready to spend 30 minutes every 2 weeks with you to see the progress and like contribute his knowledge towards solving the problem, this is amazing. Then the only thing you need to keep this scheduling these calls and not stopping. As soon as you stop, everything kind of starts to fall apart. It's also like a card house, right? You're building one by one.
Yeah, so you would say like talking to those potential future customers is the key, but how do you make them actually reply? Because like I understand it sounds easy, right? But like in reality, I hear a lot of people are facing like, oh, I'm trying to reach out, but they never reply. Nobody wants to talk to me. Like, do you have any suggestions on how to make people actually like care about what you're asking them?
One would be probably super counterintuitive to your persona, is actually don't be salesy. Like if there's just even like one drop of something that you're saying, like I am building blah, 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 or nobody cares what you're building. People are selfish. People want you to give them value. And if in first 2 sentences they don't understand the value, then why would they talk to you? They, like everybody of us, wants to spend time with friends, family, partying, or anything else. So for me, it was super important actually in LinkedIn to spend these 2 first sentences. And sometimes I don't even say hi. I'm just like, hey, I'm doing this. I found out I talked to 70 people or 70 product managers. I know discovery is very chaotic. I would like to learn how you do that very empathically. And here's the Calendly link for 30 minutes, 15 minutes of talk. If you have time, I would really appreciate that. And I had quite great response rate. There's nothing about sales. There's nothing about me, winning something. I just want to understand like, okay, he's product person, discovery, and then just asking for some time. Usually you can even like go to 15 minutes because 15 minutes is something that people say like, yeah, sure, whatever. Half an hour, it's already like, it's hard, right? But when you ask for this 15 minutes, usually nobody says no. I think if you don't get any response, then I will rewind back to what I said before is number one, you're targeting wrong persona, or like persona and problem. These are for me always kind of bind together, or your messaging is just bad. One of the two.
Interesting. And when you talk to those people, do you do it once, or are you keeping those conversations as you develop the product ongoing?
I always try to understand, like, are they interested in the follow-up? Usually not everybody wants to follow up. It's about probably 60 to 70% who are like, yeah, sure, like keep me up to date. And I ask them like, hey, can I actually send you an email like in 2 weeks when we have new designs, etc., to discuss you? And then I actually create a task for myself to like follow up in 2 weeks. And then I send again the link, and then it works because you're already kind of connected. When you're connected, then it just follows. The other very great tip that I applied multiple times now, which is, I didn't thought about it earlier, but actually about always end your call with asking, hey, do you know other persona people? And then they usually immediately tell you like, oh yes, I could actually invite or introduce you to XYZ. And then write them down immediately, like ask what was the name or what was the surname, whatever. And then actually follow up after the call saying like, hey, thank you for the call. You mentioned you have this people. Could you please introduce it to me? Here's a template that you could actually use. So I literally write a template that they can use for an email to introduce me to their peers. This is like a no-brainer then, right? You just put an email, put a template, boom, it's gone. Like literally like lean in, do work for other people. It's not their job to introduce you to somebody. Make it as seamless as possible. Make it as painless as possible. Then it works.
What other tricks or tools do you use as a product manager? Maybe something that helps your life.
I think it depends if it is product manager or not, but I became like, when I'm working in a team, Notion is for me crazy important. Now we are moving from Notion to Confluence in Snyk, and damn, I'm like, every time I have very specific, clear thought of how amazingly I can build something out with databases, with links, with a lot of things, everything falls apart because Confluence is kind of rigid and you have this document. It's almost like Google Doc with some sort of navigation, right? And Notion has completely different aspect of how information is linked, how you can create almost like this very low fidelity apps where you can connect a lot of things. You can track them. You can do some automations. Notion is one. Then for any tasks, I actually use also Notion sometimes, but I'm still challenged with where I should write my personal tasks. I'm more like keeping them in my head, but probably till one moment where it becomes very overwhelmed. But till now, I never forgot to like do what I planned to do. It very pisses off my wife because I remember also a lot of things that other people told me to do. This is probably the other side of the coin, that for myself, I know what I need to do, but I also remember that people who didn't do what I asked them. But if you have a team which is a bit bigger, I think Linear is doing a great job with very simplistic like engineering tool. For product specifically, I believe product board is a great tool for managing complexity, because when your product grows, you should think of how to bring all of that in one place. Because as soon as you hire first a couple of product people, it becomes very, very kind of fragmented, because all product people, they don't have the same toolkit. It's not like you work with the same programming language. It's like different people will start using different frameworks, but for the same type of problem. So you want to have this tool as early as possible in place so that everybody follows the same process of how you deliver product, how you design it, etc. And obviously Figma is like day and night. It's like Figma probably. I use Sketch a lot in the past, but then this missing of just open the browser, put a link, and you're actually designer. This is what Figma just changed absolutely, like for all design tasks that I had. Yeah, that three would probably, like if I would set up any company setup with team, that would be like Linear, Product Board, Slack, Notion, Figma. That's the five, the most important ones.
Okay, that's interesting. And another thing, just to understand a bit, like about the product manager role, like when you come to work, and you're a product manager, like how does your day look like? What do you typically do there?
Super unfascinating. I'm coming to work, opening Slack. I see 99 problems, ain't no one. And you go solve 99 problems. Hopefully do it before your day is over. If the day is over before that, and you're like, yes, I have some time actually to do product work, then usually what I do, I read a lot of like feeds. I have like Feedly, where I get all my news. We have also internal Slack channels where we try to gather all the interesting news. And then I'm trying to understand where's the market is moving. So for example, I'm reading what are in my particular role now as a product manager in AI and machine learning, I'm reading, are there new LLMs that were introduced? Are there any new interfaces for LLMs, for example? Are there new code generation tools? Are there any new studies on, for example, like code assistance, which maybe introduce more vulnerabilities, others who maybe now write automated tests? So I start actually literally kind of sucking in information from the market. And then when I have found something really interesting, I'm trying to map it back to our product. And I'm trying to understand, because Snyk is quite big. And then I'm trying to understand like in which domain of Snyk I could actually maybe take this and apply and change completely how we do something. And from there, actually the product work starts, right? Because the first thing is the spark that you're like, oh, that's interesting technology. And oh, we have this way how we do something. And you're like, but what if I took this here, which nobody did before, and it would change the paradigm, how we approach things? I mean, there's other side of that, whereas I think a lot of product managers are project managers, and they love more like operational moving Jira tickets and roadmaps. It's like, I don't believe this is actually a product work. But then you have other people who are more reluctant to looking something on the market and then like everything else, because they have a hammer or they believe they have a hammer now. All the other things are nails, and they're trying to kind of nail everything in, and it doesn't really work. We see it now a lot with AI. Like, I think there are so many AI startups who unfortunately create products that nobody needs, because like Microsoft can just add an AI to Google Word and you're done. Like I was in California in November. I was on the OpenAI conference, and I was sitting like in the third row or something. And then when they introduced the mini GPTs, I literally heard people behind me stunning, because they just went out of business in a second. Just because whole their business was so much driven around being a feature of somebody else's product, that then when they introduce this feature, you're out. You're like wiped with a huge wave. This is where great product skills are helping you, not to follow this path of like going and building, but actually now you have this use case, you have this idea. Now you go down, and usually I see it like as 3 buckets. You have one bucket is like problem, second bucket is solution, and the third bucket is actually strategy. So in the first bucket, if we go into problem, is actually understanding what problem this technology or this specific thing will solve for my company. Like what exactly is it? Or it might like for my company or for my customer, right? It might be transitive that yes, we do, for example, customer support. Our customers are waiting too long, so they're churning. So we need to improve this process, right? And then you can apply technology. Or our customers' reporting is bad. They want to do it faster. So you're adding AI, for example, to automate summarization or some other things. And you need to assess the problem first. So usually when I define it, I write down my assumptions about the problems of those users, what they want to achieve, and what should why it's happening. And as soon as I have this section ready, I don't go to solution and strategy. I literally go and schedule 10 calls with people. And then I go and talk to them and I ask them, is my assumptions at all correct? If this is correct, then the next thing I go and I pick some designer and engineer, and we're like, oh, how solution might look like. And then we designed something. And then I would literally write an email to the same people I talked before and actually ask them like, hey, can we have another call? We have some progress. I would like to show you something and get your feedback. And then we go with a couple solutions in. Maybe we get one, maybe we get another, or maybe we get kind of a connection between the two. But whenever we got then solution validation that yes, there's something, we maybe prototyped it and we know that, then I'm checking actually the strategy. Is it something that actually where in the company does it fit in? Is it something we want to invest more money? So it's not just like, yes, we have now a solution and let's go and like deploy it. No, you need to understand it. Is it actually the right timing? Like, do you want to ship this feature now? Is it the right moment for you to invest more resources? Because it might be the other part where you have obvious, for example, insights that, for example, customers are churning because this doesn't work, right? And you have finite number of resources always. You don't have this flexibility of like thousands of developers and thousands of designers, and you're just like moving things around. So you need always kind of to analyze, is this new shiny object fitting my like long-term and short-term strategy? If so, then usually it's like complete separate team because you don't want to disrupt your R&D. So you're actually setting up the new team who will focus on this kind of and build it one by one, like step by step. This is like in essence the process that I'm doing a lot of times in the week at the moment.
Okay. Can I ask you, like, and that's probably my personal preference, but like, I want to hear your opinion on that. So to me, I think like one big important task of the product manager is not adding the features, but deleting the features. Is this something that you do often? Or if yes or no, like, how do you look into that? Because like sometimes you need to kill the feature to make the room for others. Like, how does it fit your day? And like, how does it fit your mind as a product manager?
I never build bad features. No, I'm kidding. There are features that don't work out. Yes, you need to be humble enough to say like, oh shit, we developed this. It doesn't work. So let's kill it. But I believe it's also very hard. I mean, the hard decision about companies who don't do that is about understanding why it doesn't work. When you deploy the feature and you don't have any analytics, for example, or you have some very rudimentary analytics of, yes, they opened this page, but they didn't buy the product. So is the page bad now or good? They will say like, bad. Look, they looked at the page, but is it actually the page? Or maybe it's a copy. Maybe your title works, but your content doesn't work. Maybe the price is wrong. So now would you now kill your whole online marketing department because they developed wrong landing pages? Not really. So I think there is space for killing something, but I believe there should be space before you launch and you kill where you experiment. I mean, you don't experiment forever, but you should have some sort of validation of like, okay, we tried this. It didn't work. We tried to change that. It also didn't work. We tried to change this and it also doesn't work. Then you need to take decisions and like, okay, then we kind of delete it. We remove the code so we don't have any legacy and then we move forward. This is an essential kind of pivoting process, right? When something that sparked me a couple of years ago is actually the concept of no backlog. I think this is very strong. And this is cleans your mind as, you know, as a founder and as a product manager, because often you have this pile up of project ideas, what you would like to do. And everybody's like, yeah, put it to the backlog. And exactly at this moment, you all literally just agreed to kill this. So why do you put it to backlog? Like, if this is that amazing, we will remember it in a year or 6 months. So this thing about like actually cleaning up, because when you will come to, if something is so substantially good, you will actually think about like, okay, what do we want to focus for the next quarter, for example? And then you will remember this when you will talk to people. And if you don't remember it, then it doesn't matter. Then probably it was just like a spark of idea that sparked your passion, but then you didn't have any, you know, discovery, you didn't have any data, you didn't have any kind of, you had your emotions, and emotions are not the best business driver of building, you know, great products. Usually it's actually understanding of the people and market. And this is what drives kind of the success. I mean, it took me a while to understand this, but in the beginning I was the same, like, oh, this feature would be amazing. Let's build it. What would it take us? Oh, I can design it over the lunch tomorrow. I said like, amazing, do it. And then somebody will design it. I will just go and then I will ask engineers, and engineers will tell me, hey, we don't have cycles. And I will be like, oh, okay. And I will literally go and create a PR myself and push, like, write code. And I will actually create a PR to our repository to launch something completely new. And then everybody will be pissed off. Like, every developer will be pissed off. Like, why product manager is coding? Why is this here? And we didn't put it in our Scrum. And now it will break up our, I don't know, analytics for velocity and burn down chart and all of this kind of nightmare. So I think great ideas, if they're great, really, they will stick around. By the way, it doesn't mean that you don't put your ideas somewhere else. Like, for example, if you have like tool like product board, you have special part for ideas, where, customer feedback is coming in, your salespeople are putting ideas. This is something different. But like, if you're an engineering team, you have your Jira backlog, then usually I was always keeping like current feature and the next feature. That's it. That's super clean. And everything like tech debt, etc., I treated it exactly the same thing as I wanted a feature. Engineers want to clean up their code. So I treated them exactly in the same manner. We always put it time for them to, to keep the product clean in terms of what is happening behind the curtain, but also actually focusing just on the next two features.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. I actually wanted to also to have enough time to talk about the Pandalign, because I think you have an interesting perspective on how to improve building the product. So can you give a short pitch? What is Pandalign? And then I'll ask you a couple of more follow-up questions on this.
Pandalign is the summary of all my problems and my mistakes that I have done as an entrepreneur in terms of building products without thinking. And Pandalign is a tool that helps teams to run product discovery and actually validate that the features that they think of are as amazing that they are in reality. So it helps you to define your hypothesis. In the same process that we discussed before, you define your persona. We help you with new AI to actually generate the outreach, explain you how to do the outreach, like what we discussed before. How do I find these people in LinkedIn, for example? What message do I send them? Or if I reach out via email, this is the template that you can use. Then you define, your problem statement. What are the problems the users have? Afterwards, you actually go into running the interviews. So we also help you define the questions for the interviews, because I found out on myself that early in the days, I asked very dumb questions. I literally was validating the solution I wanted to build and not the problem users should have. And that leads you to wrong assumptions. In addition, that I did in the past, that I believe somebody gave me this advice and I still can't find and kill this person. They tell you, yeah, go, a lot of people in this role. And then you go and you talk to people who you know. And of course, they will not tell you you're stupid. They will tell you like, this is an amazing idea. Yes, this is an amazing product. And you're so passionate. And then you go and run, you build the shit. And then like you have only these two friends who are using it. And it's like free plan or something. So you run the interviews. We help you actually define the questions. We use some sort of prompting around, the MOMS test, continuous customer discovery from Teresa Torres, and a bunch of other like books that we kind of consolidate together. And then you can run interviews. You add all your notes there, and then we distill those into insights. So if you do only 10 interviews, then probably it's super easy for you to connect the dots and kind of understand what is there. But the great discoveries where you actually go into like dozens, you have like 30, 40, 50 people you talk to, and then you have this 50 transcripts. It's super hard to actually understand what are the bits that came up together. And then at the end, we're kind of bringing you this in one document that then you can actually fill out with all your own thoughts and insights. And this is a great foundation for sharing with all of your organization. On one side, you're giving this long-awaited why to developers when they redo stuff 10 times or when they develop a new feature and they want to understand like why actually you're doing this. Then you're giving sort of superpowers to your marketing and sales team, because the best thing they can use in their outreach is actually using the quotes of the customers around the problems they have. And if you know exact wording that, for example, all CEOs who have sales background have, and you will literally use their words in your LinkedIn ad or in the white paper you're sharing, you will have significant higher click-through rate. You will have significant higher return on investments on your marketing campaigns. So this gives you like this hub of knowledge to actually improve how you ship your product to the market. Probably a long pitch, but it gives kind of overall sense.
Yeah, it was definitely not a short introduction, but let's try to go a bit deeper. So how would people do what they would do in Pandalign in the future? How they're doing it today?
Not on record, I would say they don't. They actually speculate and hallucinate in the same way how LLMs do. So when somebody tells me that LLM has hallucinate, and this is a bug, I say, not it's a feature. Humans do the same thing. And a lot of times when you have some product people who came up with some feature plan, they essentially pull some information from the internet and then they kind of convert this information into the thing they want to build. And I know, for example, one company, which is super interesting was for me, it was the most insightful call I had with Danish company. They do procurement, document, and etc. And their head of product said that you as a product person or engineer or designer, you're not allowed to present any features without spending first 10 minutes of your meeting on showing snippets of Zoom calls with customers. Because he said, even when they said like you need to prove Zoom calls, the people, they did Zoom calls, but then what they wrote was not always the same thing that they said. Like, yes, the words were pronounced, but the meaning of the words is different. Very few people who I talk to, they actually do discovery in a proper manner, because you can do discoveries. There's only product person and some other person, right? If you're a founder and you don't have a co-founder, then I get it why you do that. But in essence, if you have a team and you have a designer, you have somebody with technical tech lead or I don't know, engineering manager, whoever it is, then you should always try to get 3 people in the room and the person you're talking to. Because product person will have his own business and product aspects in his head. If you have an engineering lead in your head, he will think about, oh, what other technologies we might use. I don't know, AI and LLMs, and is it just workflow automation or something else? And designer will everything see like fancy blossoms and colors, and yeah, we could add a button here and table here, and they're thinking in like user experience. And usually these 3 things are completely different. And what you want to have, you want to connect them together to one central understanding of the problem for all of these 3 dimensions. And if you have this, then you can actually clearly kind of understand what's the core problem of it, or are we actually on the direct spot around providing specific solution. I did it, by the way, when I started at Snyk. I worked on Snyk Learn, which is security education for developers. And we did this, like every call we did, I literally brought always my designer and my engineering manager to every call that I did discovery with developers. It was so essential that our engineering manager understands why we're doing this. He understands like what are the problems of actually developers, even though he's also a developer, right? He also has his idea, so he's already biased. But then when he hears what other people are saying who are in the same role as he is, he's completely changing his mind and his perception of the problem. Designer, in essence, right? Designers are probably the most prepared for discovery. I think founders are the most snobby for discovery because they think they know the best and they're the next Steve Jobs and they're visionaries.
They know better.
And yada, 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 yada. Exactly. And then they face reality and it's like, oh, but maybe I still need a UX designer and maybe I need to listen to some people who I talk to and not just do it for record. And engineers are usually quite open because they never do that. They're very shy to ask questions. But then when they're in a call, after the call, it's super interesting to talk to them because their perception of the discussion is very different. And when you bring this trio, or how it was in one of the books, it was called triad. So when you bring this triad to the calls and then you do this 30, 40, 50 calls, this is insane. This increases your chances so high that then if you still are convinced that this is the right thing to build, then you would definitely have success.
No, I like I like this, the idea of bringing in the team. The only problem with that is that they should have still time to actually build the product as well. But it's definitely giving a good context
Yeah, I think if you split it down, like I know there are actually two dimensions of problematic. Like, yes, in a small startup, usually you also outsource a lot of things. So you often don't have like but you still have like core team of people who are involved, right? And different people have different backgrounds. The other also problem is in the new kind of remote culture, it's always hard to find this time where everybody would fit, right? If you have all the team in San Francisco, then obviously it's easy. But now if you have somebody in San Francisco, somebody in Bali, somebody in Europe, and now you have a customer in Singapore, of course you can bring all the people, or you're all crazy and you just like, you're so bullish on your product that you're like, I will not sleep. I will wait for this amazing 30-minute call with this guy. And yes, in early stage startup, this is how it should be. I believe in early stage startup, every call that you're doing with potential customer, you're like, the best would be you bring your whole team there. Because if all team is there and everybody listens to this call and everybody are there to ask questions, this is like insane. This brings you much more. I actually talked to one startup in Zurich in very early days of Pandalign because I was interested how the startup was actually, they went from Zurich to Silicon Valley. They were in YC and then they moved back to Zurich, and I asked him about discovery and he said, dude, yes, of course we're remote, but every call with potential customer or like potential user in discovery, all the team needs to go there. It doesn't matter. Is it morning, day, night, whatever. Everybody comes in, you listen in, and then you can go to sleep. This is even good. When you wake up, you have so many ideas. You're so fresh. This is a very different approach than the usual one. For example, even like when I was in San Francisco visiting, also you remember I talked to your friend from LinkedIn, and he told me like, oh, no. We have a user experience program management department. They do research, they do discovery. And I asked her like, but how are you building product if you're not talking to customers? This is for me very like, was frustrating. I was like, but how do you know? They're like, yeah, but they're like gathering feedback and they're distilling and bringing me information. But they're like, okay, this information was changed 10 times probably. So what you got is like this broken phone, right? The chain. So that the user actually said what is wrong. It's not anymore wrong. Something wrong is completely different that your UX departments wants to work on.
So your opinion is that interview is pretty much the core of the product manager job, and that's your key tool that you want to use, right?
I think the interview and like bringing people internally together to talk to customers about the product or idea or the problem, this is the work of product manager. I don't think if you're responsible for shipping features or products end to end, it's in your interest in shipping the right thing. And the only way to know that before building it is talking to users or talking to, customers. So whenever you spark up with a new idea, it's your actually role is to take any resources you need. Usually it's like a designer and somebody who has engineering background. And then you go into the code. There are some features there you don't need designer. If it is like deep tech, usually you don't have an interface. It's more like about some algorithms or some hard, not solved problems. Then you might just have somebody, with PhD and me who is not PhD, but I can talk to people, and then you're more like facilitating this discussion. But this is probably the word I would use. Like product manager's job is actually to facilitate these discussions with customers, with users, and then actually bring the thoughts together and actually create kind of holistic pitch around what is the problem, what's the solution, how does it align with our company strategy, and why it's now the right time to build this. Because something might still be a problem, but it might be not the right moment.
So for Pandalign, how many customers did you talk to like before actually going to build the product?
So Pandalign, the first version of Pandalign was actually not Pandalign. It was a holistic product management tooling with the Kanban board and everything. And then one of the biggest inspiration were probably you, who told me like, hey, nobody needs another Asana, Monday, whatever. And then I was in a lot of events in San Francisco. And then I also did the LinkedIn journey. And I in total probably spoke with 50 to 70 people. And it was funny that everybody told me like, hey, I don't need this project management thingy, but what was this customer discovery thing? And how do I do that? And how do I find people? And how do I do the outreach? And how do I do that, et cetera, et cetera. And then I actually destroyed the first product. And now I actually restarted to build it from scratch for focusing on just one slice of it. It's hard because like, when you build a huge product, you can just sell to all different people. Now, when you're building a product for a very specific area, for a very specific problem that people are not aware even that they have, or sometimes they know that they have this problem, but they think they can do it themselves. And by the way, custom discovery, you can do it in Notion, Confluence, Post-its, spreadsheet, Excel. What I saw how people do discovery it amazes me. The creativity of humans is outreachless. That's why I know why AI is so bad, like why LLMs sometimes answer you so weird things. That's how we are. That's how we humans operate. Why should I use this Notion template for this guy? I will just create a Google spreadsheet. I will have questions here, people on the top, and that's how I do it. But then at one point you will ask yourself, like, okay, I have now 10 product managers. I have 10 different, sources for discovery. I have no clue how often we talk to whom. So some customers will just stop talking to us because we're overwhelming them with, hey, I want to talk to you about this. I want to talk to you about that. The third person comes in, fourth person comes in, and then you have a account manager who actually has a hard time because he wants actually to do, for example, a contract renewal. And we're just like bombarding them with discovery. And then sales guys like, hey, like, come on, you're destroying the whole like process here.
Don't forget the marketing department. They're trying to get the attention as well.
Then these guys who are selling like, newsletters and hey, let's talk about case study and this and that and fill out our NPS score. Then at one point, customer just like goes radio silence and say like, I will not talk to them. Like they're so like annoying. This is what you don't want to do. You don't want to cross this very thin line between you make your customers special because they feel, oh, you care about their experience, you care about their problems, and you literally deeply want them to be successful, versus you become so annoying because you're sending so many messages to the customer that they're just like, they don't want to talk to you anymore. Like HubSpot at one point starts to be this. Because like in the beginning, you just like, you start a free plan in HubSpot, you get some emails, you get some and that's it. Now they do the same thing as Salesforce does. As soon as you just fill out even like an email that you didn't even send the form, you already get a reminder. Hey, you didn't fill out the form. I was like, I didn't even submit it. How do you know that I was there? So this is very sensitive.
So what will be like the minimum viable product for Pandalign? Like what will you launch with? Like what features will you have when it goes live?
For the first version, we have a lot of ideas around like having a Zoom agent and having a live agent helping you with questions and distilling all of the stuff. So in essence, the first thing that we want to do is we define it in 3 layers. We have a process, then we have education, and then we have automation/AI. So for the first version, we want to provide end-to-end process where you can write hypotheses, where you can define your personas. Then you can define your opportunity around like this persona has this problem. This is why it exists. This is their outcomes. And then you would actually do the interviews and then you can fill out this opportunity like one by one. It might be that you can also, for example, fill out some parts of solution, like how customers are or how users are currently solving this. You can already kind of write something down. But in essence, this is like a living document that you're filling out. And then at the end, you will have all the interviews, everything connected to it. So this is like the process that we're trying to bring as an MVP out. Then as a follow-up, we want to actually to have that you will have actually sort of PRD or feature plan. We don't know yet what it will be, but actually having like the clean list of this is how the feature is, this is why, this is how, this is what. And this will be actually distilled from the information that you had before. The next thing after that would actually come the connections to various call platforms like, Zoom, you have Google Meet, etc. I still think that people want and should write notes themselves. In particular, I used in the beginning when I set up my Pandalign email, I wanted actually to have Zoom notes and videos in one platform. It's called Fireflies. So I started using them, but then in almost every second call, I'm reading the name of the person with whom we connected on LinkedIn and they booked me like this half an hour discovery call and then read the name and say like, oh, you speak Russian? And they're like, yes. And then we just switch to speaking Russian. But then the Fireflies doesn't know Russian. So you just write some random stuff that actually doesn't really mean anything, but it sounds from Russian to English somehow. And then other person was, for example, from Estonia. Then we started to speak in Estonian. And then the other person speaks in German. Then we start speaking German. And then like you have all of that kind of nonsense that this noting app has no value, like zero. I can get anything. So I need to do notes anyway. I believe it will still even be that way, that you need to be present in these calls. I think people do business with people. There are a bunch of platforms currently popping up who try to automate this whole journey, like whole discovery process. That you will only like type in, this is what this thing or feature I want to do. And they will actually go send an email to your contacts that you just add emails to the platform. They will schedule the calls. And then there's this AI agent who will appear in the call and ask you questions. You will answer them. And then like, they will distill this into the insights. So this is very strange because, for example, in B2C, I think it is, if you will pay them money for the interviews, I absolutely agree that would work. But B2B is not about that. B2B is about building strong relationships, right? This is a quote motto of Parma CRM or Parma now. But this is what is B2B is about. Like if you do discovery with somebody, you want to get connected. You want to be like in the same place. I mean, virtually or physically. But this is the beginning of a long relationship, hopefully. And if it goes, it's not about a AI agent. It's about people talking to people, people solving people's problems, right? And that's why we still believe that Pandalign has a great future. We are, building this MVP version, which will take some time, but discovery is all about people reading humans. It's emotions and it's experience. It's talking. It's making relationships, becoming friends, becoming business partners, and much more. That's why AI will not be able to automate it.
Yeah, you know that I'm waiting for a product for a long time. So when is it going live? When can we start using it?
It's coming soon. If it would be about me, it would become tomorrow. But it will take a couple of months to actually package it out.
Okay, yeah, because like I think do you already collect early access users or not yet?
Yes, like pre-orders and early subscribers and people who think they should become product discovery champions. Please just reach out to us. I have a sort of kind of blueprint that you can actually take already today and just apply it. It doesn't matter how you do it. It's all about like building the skills. Again, Pandalign doesn't bring you anything completely new. Pandalign helps you to reduce the hurdle of start doing the discovery. So we have a blueprint. I can actually share it with anybody who is interested, and you can take it and you can start applying it very consistently. Obviously, it will take much more time than with our product, but as soon as the product live, you will be kind of super prepared. So you can switch in a matter of, kind of probably an hour or something, and then you can move all your stuff there and, keep your discovery going. I believe it's much more about the doing this, right? It's not about actually that something is completely new or, everybody read Lean Startup Book. Okay, what is the second chapter of Lean Startup Book? Customer discovery. That's it. How many startups do customer discovery? I'm not sure.
Actually, like I'm getting, when startups reach out to me, like there's more and more companies at early, like super early stage when they don't have product, who actually want to hear like, and if I'm fitting their persona, like I'm seeing more and more startups like reaching out, like, oh, we know you do this and that, like we're trying to research this problem, like can we jump on an interview? Like I'm hearing that more often than
but this is
before.
interesting that startups are doing it definitely more and more, because I think it's also, last week I was at an event called Start Hack. This is one of the biggest hackathons here in Europe, and it happens in St. Gallen, in University of St. Gallen. And I was doing there a workshop before the opening of the hackathon, and I was also part of the panel where we discussed how to actually succeed in a hackathon, how to build stuff in 36 hours to success. And then when I was scheduling this workshop, the organizers, they told me like, yeah, there will be like 15, 20 people max. It's like a small room. You will just do it, and there's probably somebody will come more. And then I was going down in this huge building, and I see there's one room with open doors. There are like chairs outside of the room, and they all like look inside. And I was thinking like, wait a second, is this my room? And then Oscar, the organizer, is like, yeah, this is like your room. And I get in, and the room is full. It was like, I don't know, probably 30, 40 people, like double of the size. And I was like, are you sure? Like, this is my workshop here. I was like, yes. It was fascinating. Like, people were literally looking. Everybody was doing like photos of every slide I showed. Great questions about, how to not be biased, how to do this, how to do that, how to find these people to talk to, and how do you do it in 36 hours? And then you answer super simple questions like, yes, go to LinkedIn and filter out the persona you want. Or you are now a team of 6 people. I bet that any persona you pick, somebody of you will have in your families, in your close friends or friends of friends. Just go to WhatsApp and ping these people and ask them like, and then some people are like, no, it's not me. I was like, okay, what is your persona? And she was like, house doctors, like family doctors, right? And I was like, okay, do you know a doctor? She was like, no. I was like, do you have a big family? Like, is there anybody in medicine? And she was like, oh yeah, like my cousin or something is from pediatrist or something like that. And then I asked her like, okay, you think he has colleagues who are like family doctors? She's like, oh, I don't know. And then she like called his cousin, and he's like, hey, how do you know? And then he sent her like 5 or 6 like people who he knows are like family doctors. And then she called them next day. And I was like, great job. Look, it's not that hard. It's hard work, yes. But the exercise is great.
Reminds me of me going into doctors or any kind of like, or dentist. Like, I always like care about businesses who take careful notes from the meetings of customers, and doctors are really good. So whenever I go to doctor's appointment, I'm like, oh, can you show me how you do that? Like, and I'm always like going and peeking into their CRM platform on the back. Like they might think I'm crazy, but like, it's actually very interesting to see like, and those opportunities are endless. Like they're everywhere. If you start thinking about that.
That's why I think the process of discovery is not something new. I think it was Marty Kagan who said in the Lenny's podcast that there's a lot of product managers who are not product managers. They evolved from project management background, and they don't have this kind of, entrepreneurial skill set is it's being adaptive and learn skills very fast. So as a usual product manager, yes, you have this product suspect, but do you have deep technological understanding? Do you have deep business understanding? Can you do market research, or can you do market analysis, understand where do you stand, what industries to go in, how to look into them? And I believe this aspect of discovery is the same skill, but it's not taught by universities. It's not something you go through as a project manager. It's something as part of, user experience, because they do research, right? And research, part of UX research is actually sort of discovery, because you do the designs, you then the Figma, clickable prototype, you talk to users, and then you find out what is right and what is wrong. But usually it's more like, this green button has 20% more conversion rate than this red button, right? This is a bit different than, hey, I believe you have this problem. Do you have it? How do you do it? Can you tell me last time you experienced it? And then you go deeper. And this muscle is often not something that comes out of the box or out of the toolkit that product managers have. That's why you don't have it. But a lot of people talk about it. It's like teenage sex. A lot of people talk about it, but nobody saw nobody doing it. Sometimes you see this pages with sort of discovery, but more like, I read this article, I took this article, I put them together, this is what it is. Or I take Slack message from somebody and then I put it as a salesperson in a call with XYZ. Then they put notes in Slack, and then you're like copying it out and say like, hey, this guy in this call said this. I say like, was this guy or was it our sales rep? Because it's different. The sales rep put it in what he wants to sell, not what the guy asked or a lady. But then this is very interesting also. Like usually you have understanding that specific data might not be correct, and it might just give you a signal that you should look there, but not at the data, but actually go and talk to these people. This is hard, I think. Also in big companies, just like when you're too big, then you have project management and program management and research and design, and everybody are like fragmented, then you don't have this cohesive experience. Maybe Facebook is one of the best ones, by the way, because they do their experimentation engine is so big. They have so many people, from designers, product people, engineers, everybody. And, when they roll out things, it was a lot of times they roll out from where's New Zealand, I think. So they start from New Zealand and then they launch gradually the features. And then if something goes wrong and then see there's some anomaly that people just dropping off, they will shut down the feature immediately. They will not even think about it. Because for them, the minimum fluctuation of activity is a lot of money. So they are probably one of the very experimental and driven companies there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually very excited about your product, and I think it can have huge impact on the market, because the customer discovery and doing product management needs some kind of more system than what we have right now. And hopefully with what you do is it will make it easier for product managers to be systematic and stop being too creative and doing everything and for everyone. It's so hopefully it's going to help.
Yeah, something I talked recently in an interview, and somebody told me that Pandalign, I explained to him what Pandalign is doing, and he told me don't you think it is too opinionated? And I told him there is one side which is chaos and the other side is opinionated. And if it's about success of my product, I better be opinionated but successful, rather than chaotic and, just hiring a bunch more people because just we don't have understanding where's which data, what we're doing, and just go and bigger and bigger and bigger.
To summarize and to start wrapping up as well, what would you recommend for new product managers, or even for existing ones? What would you recommend as a book or as a podcast to read, to learn, and to become better product manager?
I mean, number one, probably it's super simple. It's actually almost like a church of product management, is Lenny's podcast. It's not all about the hard skills, how you do stuff, but it's very kind of general knowledge with very amazing people. You learn a lot, probably much more than from the books, because it's all derived from reality. Number two is something that I found myself very useful, and my previous manager, Ben Williams, who is now PL Geek, because PLG and Geek together, PL Geek. Wow. He actually has great content around product growth. And he also introduced me to the platform called Reforge. And Reforge has enormous great resources on usual product management, or how to master product management, how to do growth, how to do product marketing. I think every entrepreneur actually, this is great resource to actually learn the basics, because, entrepreneurs have different backgrounds, being it engineering or being it business. Reforge is very kind of centric to understanding the product domain and all that aligns around it, like the metrics, the growth, how do you position your products, the messaging, all of that is there. And then on the discovery specifically, I think there are 3 books. Number one is The Mom Test, the best, I don't remember, $14 that I invested in the book that I read in one day, and I was flashed out. I was like, God's sake, where was this book before? It's actually changed my perception of talking to people work-wise, but even privately. Now, when I talk privately to people and then I meet somebody on an event, the way how I ask questions changed a lot. Although I'm not doing discovery. It's not about discovery anymore. But as soon as you have this muscle in, you just can't get rid of it, because you don't want to go back to asking this boring questions oh, nice weather. What do you think? Yeah, okay, it's good. And then you literally spend time on thinking how to ask and what to ask. And second one would be Continuous Customer Discovery from Teresa Torres. This is a bit more for bigger teams and big companies. And actually, I'm currently reading something which is very great for product managers in general. It's Build Trap. This is the book. It's on the side is actually about how not to become a feature factory and how actually to build meaningful products that have strategy. This is really, really great. And they also discuss there how it evolves as a product and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, there's a bunch of other books, like that you must have read if you're at all product manager or entrepreneur, like, Lean Startup, Growth, Hack Growth. I think there's a list of great literature. My problem is that whenever you read them, you always can apply 10%. So in order to ramp up your skills to 100%, you need to read 10 books. But I don't have time for 10 books. That's why I'm kind of doing baby steps. And literally like reading this like 120 pages a week. That was for me like the bar that I put was a great kind of challenge. And then you actually go from 20 to 30, then you go to 40. And then at one point you just start I started booking time in my calendar. Like I just put a calendar like 2 hours and just put reading. And then I have my Apple Watch that ding dings. And then I just go in my office, close the door and sit there, open the book and I read. Sometimes, I mean, it's open. I'm falling asleep, but this is also positive because then I'm recharged and then I can do stuff afterwards.
Then you sleep better.
Exactly.
But I'll put together all of those links that you just mentioned. I'm sure. I didn't read half of the things which you mentioned, so I'll collect it for myself and then share it with others as well.
Sure, I can send you the links after the call.
Look, Edgar, I appreciate you finding time. I know it's getting late and dark at your side. It was really insightful. I think we've learned quite a lot on product management today. I did want to talk with you about AI, but I think that's going to be worth the whole another record.
But AI is changing the world, and AI is changing a lot of product management. So and not only, you're kind of coming from sales and customer support, I think are the two very vulnerable domains at the moment. I already hear like one friend of mine, they literally added AI in customer support and they only need 1/3 of resources they had before. Enormously huge e-commerce company. And when I heard this, I was like, holy crap. I mean, they didn't fire people. They just moved them to e-commerce to actually optimize more their e-commerce offerings. But just that technology in 1 year can replace like 2/3 of a department. That sounds for me like industrial revolution. I don't know, what was it, like 50, 100 years ago? This is incredible.
We'll talk about that next time with you. Okay, I appreciate you. Thanks a lot.